Hi Internet, this is Z here, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about KPIs. KPIs stands for Key Performance Indicators, and it's a way of measuring how you're doing. Now, you may have also seen an internet meme going around that says that it's actually about ensuring that you keep people interested, involved, informed, and ultimately inspired. Now, when everything's said and done, KPIs usually involve some form of measurement, and it's really easy to get excited and start trying to measure everything, but sometimes we end up measuring the wrong things, and there is a certain behavior that at least I've seen sometimes where you spend a lot of time developing your KPIs, say at the start of the annual cycle. What happens is something called set and forget, where you park everything that you've done and you don't look at it again for probably a quarter, or maybe when it's time for your next performance review. It tends to happen because we sometimes, in the bid to get measuring, we obsess over the wrong things. So there is this article that describes how when you want to make measurements on a system, you need to distinguish between things that are at the top, which are kind of like inputs, the activities that transform those inputs into outputs, and those outputs themselves lead to outcomes that ultimately have some sort of impact. Now, most of the time, you want to try and drive towards that final impact or that outcome. The difficulty is it's never so straightforward, because as you continue to flow downwards in this picture, those things become harder to quantify. They're further out into the future. You tend to have less control. So what happens is you end up measuring things that are closer to the top, because it's sometimes easier. The difficulty there is these are just proxies for the actual impact that we want, or the outcomes that we're trying to achieve, and this drives all sorts of weird behaviors. So turning this to something that is maybe a bit more concrete, we can talk about, say, the healthcare industry. So if you're the Ministry of Health and what you want to achieve is better quality of life for your citizens, you can of course measure input metrics like how much spending is going into healthcare. But problem is, the spending in healthcare doesn't automatically translate into healthier, longer living, happier people. You could go one step further and say, well, I'll measure activity, things like how many doctors graduate in a year, how many hospitals are being built. You go one step further and start measuring things that are outputs of that system, like infant mortality, average lifespan of people. That's a little bit better, but again, it's not exactly the same as that final piece around healthier, longer living citizens who enjoy a better quality of life. And I'm not trying to say that you shouldn't use these metrics, because quite often in practical situations, it's not going to be easy to measure that final impact or outcome that you want. But it's important to recognize that some of these things are just proxies for what you want to achieve. Now, the challenge is with all these measurement systems is that sometimes they take on a life of their own, and they're often tied to how you reward performance, and that can generate some really weird incentives. So a great story is the Cobra effect, and it's so named because back in the day in colonial India, the British wanted to eliminate the problem of cobras, and what they did is they offered a reward for people who caught cobras. Now, you can imagine what happened next. People started breeding baby cobras in order to exchange them for money. And when they found out that this scam was going on, they discontinued the reward system, which resulted in the cobra breeders releasing all these baby cobras, having the complete opposite effect of what the scheme was supposed to do. Another great story about measurement in systems, and how sometimes it's not about incentives, but also how you choose to measure. Now, don't measure everything, because measurement comes at a cost. So what you do is you sample, or you measure what you can. And in the Second World War, the Americans wanted to reinforce the planes that they were sending out to the field, and they started looking at the planes that return, and it took a mathematician to realize that reinforcing the places where you see the bullet holes actually didn't make sense, because those were the planes that came back. So what you should do is actually reinforce the places where you didn't see the holes, because that's probably where the planes got shot and they never returned to base. So the survivorship bias also happens. So when you're trying to develop a metric system, it's important to also think about the costs of measuring things, but also whether or not you've got a good sample to represent the entire population. Which brings me nicely to OKRs. Now, and OKRs stand for objective and key results. And objectives are the what, key results are the how, and it differs from KPIs, because KPIs tend to be measuring things for operational performance. OKRs are more a scheme to help you set goals and move towards it. So OKRs tend to change because they are reviewed periodically, maybe on a quarterly basis, and it's a bit of a different way of using measurements and metrics in order to drive towards where you want to go. So if you are trying to develop a metric system for your organization, you need a bit of both. So you need operational metrics, but also strategic goal setting and seeing whether or not you're achieving that outcome or that impact that you want. So I wanted to end with two quotes that kind of run in opposition to each other. Now, the first one comes from Peter Drucker, and he says that if you can't measure it, then you're not going to be able to improve it. But at the same time, there's another quote from a sociologist called William Bruce Cameron, and he says, not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted. So I think therein lies a bit of the dilemma. If you are designing some sort of system to drive performance and to keep a compelling scoreboard, you need a bit of a balance between both. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe down below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.